Who's your favorite pop diva? From Sabrina Carpenter to Beyoncé, each brings a different talent and style to the global stage. But just a few decades ago, this kind of superstardom for women in music was rare. So how'd we get here? Jennifer Cation Armstrong is a pop culture historian and author of Pop Star Goddesses. She says the female pop star persona we know today didn't take off until the 1980s. Before big names like Taylor Swift and Chappell Roan, there was Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, Pat Benatar, and many others who laid the foundation for modern pop music.
We get into this more sort of dancey, poppy, the way we think of it, versus when it used to be that the Beatles were pop music. You know what I mean? When it was basically rock and pop were kind of smushed together. So the 80s, we come out of that, and suddenly we have these huge stars.
Armstrong credits several women with shaping pop music during this time. But she says one iconic singer stands out from all the rest.
Madonna was really the OG of what we now think of as the job requirements of especially female pop stars. She's really built the mold that then people kind of maybe could never quite live up to, but would take pieces of. And so she wasn't just singing songs. She wasn't just dancing around. She had a vision for herself. She had eras, as we call them now. She always had image with content. She was always giving you a 360-degree kind of picture of what she was trying to convey at that moment. And that could change, as we saw. And that's how she survived. But it's if you go back to something like the 60s or the 50s, when we also had pop stars, it's they were just singing songs and then going about their lives. Madonna made it a whole all-encompassing thing. And I would say it raised the bar.
Like Armstrong mentioned, Madonna was the first musician to embrace the idea of having a unique era for each album. These eras are like themed chapters in a pop star's career, each with its own sound, style, and persona. Taylor Swift took this to a new level with her recent Eras tour, where she featured a unique set for each of her 11 studio albums. Swift performed 149 shows over a span of almost 2 years. By the tour's end, it broke every record, raking in more than $2 billion from ticket sales and hundreds of millions of dollars more from merchandise revenue. Armstrong believes the sheer success of this format shows how many fans today are invested in more than just the music. This can cover anything from their personal life to relationships to fashion to how they feel about certain topics. However, Armstrong says this often only matters as much for female pop stars.
They are the 360 experience, whereas Justin Bieber doesn't have to do that. Justin Timberlake certainly isn't currently doing it. They do still get to, the men a lot of times kind of just have their music and go about their lives, whereas the women really become these multimedia experiences. And of course, Taylor Swift is the gold standard now. And you know, even though she's very different from Madonna, you can also see that they're extremely similar in the approach of I'm going to give you everything. I am the biggest entertainer in the world, and I am working hard for it. And also it is paying off for me.
And recently, this interest has extended far beyond what they're wearing or who they're dating. In the 2010s, many fans started expecting celebrities to speak up about politics and social issues. This was a tough change to navigate for singers like Swift, who had historically stayed out of politics. But now, more entertainers are vocal about these topics and sometimes publicly endorse political candidates. While Armstrong supports pop stars using their platforms to raise awareness, she worries that some fans prioritize messages from celebrities over insights from actual experts or news sources.
Another job requirement became feminism. We all of a sudden started to see journalists just ask them on the red carpet, "Are you a feminist?" It would grab a headline on the internet. And that was really the key to this whole thing. And so we got this kind of on the one hand, yes, I love when my pop stars are feminist. On the other hand, it's kind of a weird situation where, again, as usual, it's like, were the Justins asked if they were feminist? No. The men aren't asked this kind of thing, and the women are. And this is where I think the political started to come into play too, where now we just had an election where all of our major female pop stars were asked to endorse a presidential candidate. And if they did not, they got in trouble with the public. And that's kind of mind blowing if you think about it. I think just because you can write lyrics or do a dance routine does not necessarily mean we should all look to you for your political guidance.
There may be a lot of pressure and added commentary in the spotlight, but that hasn't stopped a new wave of women from breaking into the industry. Just look at Gracie Abrams, Olivia Rodrigo, and Tate McRae. 1 year ago, they were all relatively unknown, and now they're selling out stadiums and headlining music festivals. Even with these stars on the rise, the biggest names in pop aren't going anywhere. In fact, Armstrong says there's room for everyone.
We're definitely in the Chappell Sabrina era, right? I mean, of course, there's still Beyonce and Taylor, but they are so unthinkably big that it's like they're just everywhere. We had Charlie XCX, especially omnipresent last summer, and Sabrina and Chappell. And I mean, Billie Eilish is already old school. But I think it's really cool to see these women in particular because they're all very different, first of all, from each other. And there's a lot more sort of quirkiness and weirdness to their outlooks and music and all of that stuff. It doesn't feel like when we had a Britney, it felt like she had to be the pop star, whereas now we're getting a bunch of different, I think, points of view. And it does feel like these women have learned lessons from all of those women before them.
And just like these stars learn from each other, there's also a lot we can learn from them, too. In her book, Armstrong highlights the strengths of these women. Although their talent, looks, and superstardom might feel out of reach, a big part of their success comes from feeling relatable. Each of these women built their platform off authenticity, their ability to connect with fans, and some really great music.
I think that is the difference between the men and the women. And it comes from all the factors that we were just talking about, that they are held to this higher standard, that they have to have a bigger message. But that means the ones that last, I feel like we connect with some bigger thing than just their music. There have been lots of people who are good at music, but, Beyonce represents something. She represents this power. And, she did this. Are there qualities of hers that I can look to and emulate? And, these women are at the top of their game. They're usually very smart businesswomen. And we can kind of take that into our everyday lives in much more normal and grounded ways and say I have asked myself, what would Beyonce do at times? You can say okay, I can be a little stronger here. Or she would ask for what she wants. So these women are in positions of power that can bring out some of their good qualities. And, we can look to that and harness those a little bit. And you can also kind of just channel it by enjoying their music.
To find out more about Jennifer Cation Armstrong and all of our featured guests, visit viewpointsradio.org. You can find Armstrong's book, Pop Star Goddesses, on Amazon.com or request copies to be stocked at your local bookstore. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on X, Facebook, and Instagram. This segment was written and produced by Grace Galanti and Amira Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.